Ever wonder who invented credit cards? You probably just assumed it was banks. Well, you might be surprised to learn that it was merchants. More than a century ago, merchants started giving customers the ability to charge purchases and pay the balance at the end of the month. And so, the charge card was born. Customers loved the idea, and as a result, sales increased. Ever heard the saying, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you"? Well, this is exactly what merchants had to deal with in the 1940s and 50s with their charge cards and customers. In addition to the high cost and risk of managing credit, they started driving some of their customers away when trying to collect payments or when they had to tell customers that their credit wasn't good enough to get a card. The merchants were in a bind. They loved the greater revenue that the cards offered them, but they despised the hassle, risk, and ill will of managing the credit. They wondered if there was a solution. In the 1950s, everything changed with the emergence of the Diners Club, and soon after, American Express. These companies handled the tough jobs of financing, underwriting, and collection, while the merchants celebrated with greater sales and the fact that they got paid even if the consumer never paid the bank for the transaction. As great as this new system was, it did come at a substantial cost, 7% for every transaction. But for merchants, it was worth it. Diners Club and American Express had to operate all of the behind-the-scenes functions for the merchants and had to create an interconnected network. This was very expensive. The merchants had no qualms with the 7% since it was still less costly than when they were doing it themselves. As the concept of cards took hold, consumers sought more options, and banks stepped in to introduce credit to improve flexibility and purchasing power. The banks organized themselves to create the platforms and networks that connected consumers, merchants, and payments. One of these networks would become MasterCard. New networks like MasterCard provided a more efficient approach to delivering these services and building the infrastructure to connect thousands of banks and millions of merchants and consumers. The credit revolution reduced costs to merchants and enabled significant innovations in security, interoperability, access, financial inclusion, and empowerment. And MasterCard is doing it everywhere in the world, especially in the emerging economies. As we move toward a global digital economy, the need for electronic payments and their potential has never been greater. MasterCard is working on the payment solutions that will serve as the foundation for economies around the world for the next generation in the same way that it revolutionized commerce among consumers, merchants, and banks a generation ago. In other words, the future is now. With 2 billion consumers shopping at 36 million merchants through more than 25,000 banks in 200 countries, MasterCard is part of the infrastructure of every economy in the world, making the case for MasterCard.